This episode and every episode is sponsored by my company, JDAQA Software Testing. We're your one-stop shop for manual, automated, performance, and security testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agner. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Dave Ashworth of Quantify. Dave, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You got it, brother. We were chatting a little bit beforehand. Chester County guy, not too far away from where I'm at in Bucks. Tell me a little bit about where you came from. Where'd you go to school? Kind of what'd you go to school for? And let's start there.
Yeah, so I'm actually originally a Delco guy.
Delco guy, all right.
Yep, so I grew up in Delaware County. I went to college at Widener, which is a local school down in that area, for accounting. Did an internship at a large firm when I was a junior, and that was in 2008, which 2009 was not a great time to be looking for a job. And
right.
so
Yep.
They offered me a job upon graduation, so I obviously took it, worked there for 3.5 years, and then started my business.
Awesome. How did you go so quickly from working for somebody else to starting your own business? Like, what kind of made you take that leap?
Yeah, it's something that I always wanted to do. I was just always fascinated by business and how things worked, and people who ran businesses, entrepreneur, all of that was just so fascinating to me. So even back in high school, I had dreams to kind of do something on my own. And as I, got into accounting, I was always kind of good at math. And so like business and math, accounting is the medium between those two. And so I kind of went that route. And then I just decided that, once I got some experience, got my CPA, that I was just going to give it a shot and see what I could do.
So so CPA, first of all, I always tell people, like, I love running a business. I love it. I love every part of it. And then they go, even the accounting? I go, except for the accounting. I hate the finance part of it more than anything else, but I love every other aspect of running a business. There's pieces to running a business that kind of correlate to the CPA side of things, obviously, like the forecasting and the finances and that sort of stuff, but how did you kind of start to figure out the other pieces to it? Did that come natural to you as you kind of got into it?
Parts of it, yes. Parts of it, no. I'm definitely like a vision person. Like I like to kind of look and see where things are going in the future and how I can adapt to that. Like that's something that I've always been pretty good at. Some of the more like operational stuff, marketing, sales, like especially those two, that's not something that I knew at all. Like accountants, especially historically, that's just not who they are.
Right.
So that's taken a lot of time to develop, to learn how to market ourselves as a company, how to brand ourselves, and then also just sales. And those are things that I continue to learn. Like you'll never truly like, hey, I arrived, I made it. Like you're always learning those things. So that was a bit more of a challenge, and it still is at times. But you do it enough. You do it for 11 years, and you learn some things along the way.
How did you? It's a great point, and I think you're dead on. Like, I don't know how anybody says they're like a sales expert, because every sale is kind of different and unique, even though there's a lot of similarities between them, obviously. But did you do any training? Like, how did you kind of start to figure out like what to do? Did you just try and fail a lot, or did you try and win a lot? Like, how did you really start to figure out how to do sales and marketing and things you didn't know how to do?
There's a combo of things. So I did a lot of reading, a lot of different people that I read books from that had built some stuff and talked about sales. So I read some books, watched some YouTube stuff. But then just tried a bunch of things, failed a lot. Pretty much anything that you can think of that's related to marketing and sales, I've probably tried somewhere along the way. And for me, I think the biggest thing was figuring out what I enjoyed doing, because in my opinion, marketing and sales, like there's so many different avenues and routes you can go, and any of them can work if you're the right person to be doing that. Like if you're a content creator, for example, if you really enjoy audio, you should create a podcast. Like you shouldn't be out like writing blogs or posting videos, right? And maybe you're really passionate about writing. Well, then, you should be doing that. And so I think finding my avenue and what I enjoy doing, and that's taken a long time to do, and then just, going all in on that, That's probably helped the most. And not there were certain things that probably worked and I know worked for other people, but I just like hated doing them and they weren't going to work for me.
That's fair. So you have a co-founder too, right? So
I do.
did you guys kind of just compliment each other from the start, and kind of whoever enjoyed doing whatever they you guys did what you enjoyed doing over time, and you kind of figured out what your roles were?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate actually. So when we started the business, we were both doing a little bit of everything. We would both be doing some work, both be doing some business development and operations, and it there were so many like ups and downs because we wouldn't have really much work, so we'd both get into marketing business development, then we'd get some work, and then we'd both be doing work. And once we were done the work, we'd run out of work because we weren't doing any business development. So we'd have to both go back into that. And we were like, this cycle is going to kill us. Like
Right.
we can't go this way. And he's just a much more technical accounting person than me. Has some more experience. He's just a better accountant than I am. And I was more comfortable in the networking and meeting people. And so we kind of just separated and said, look, there's going to be some overlap for a while, but as soon as we can, I'm going to go and focus on the business development, marketing, build the company, and you're going to focus on the technical accounting, getting the work done. And that's what we've done. And that making that decision to split that really got us going in the right direction.
And so obviously, you guys are doing what, your experience was before you started the company, but how did you kind of settle on what the business, and we talked a little bit beforehand, like, obviously things shift all the time and like you're
Yeah.
constantly pivoting and figuring stuff out, but like, how did you guys settle on where you wanted to start?
Yeah, so that's just evolved over time. So when we started the business, we were doing tax work because that's what we both did in public accounting. So we did tax. We both were doing tax prep, and so that was an easy transition because it's like, hey, we just left this firm. We're both CPAs. We have experience doing this. We worked on some huge clients together. Me and him. He was actually my boss. Worked on some really big projects together. And so we brought that experience to the table right away. So that was an easier sell than doing something that we hadn't done. Over time, we kind of shifted into what we're doing today and completely away from tax. But that took a long time to get there.
And this your first business that you
Yeah.
started?
Yeah, I mean, I graduated, worked in public accounting for 3.5 years, and then left and started the business when I was 24, 25.
Wow. I mean, that's cool. You don't. I would say you're the rarity to the folks I talk to. A lot of folks bounce around and like do a bunch of different stuff, but to kind of hit the right groove, maybe some luck, maybe some good timing, maybe some really smart planning, whatever it is. It sounds like you really just kind of hit the ground running, right? And that's not the normal story.
Yeah, and it was hard in the beginning. It was really hard. Like if you saw like how much money we were making in the first couple years, like it was pretty ugly. Um, but we knew it could work, and we stuck to it. And it certainly has paid off. And we feel like it's weird to be in business for 11 years or whatever. But like we feel like we're just starting. Like we feel
Yeah.
like we're just getting going because like we're really putting good processes in place and growing at a rate that we want to be growing. But we've been at it for a while. We've taken a lot of lessons from years 1, 2, and 3, and are still applying them today.
Yeah, I've had to fight that a little bit, feeling like I miss time by doing things now because I feel like the same way. Like we're in a groove, and you're like, did I waste a lot of time? But you got the right perspective. I think it's like you learn the things that kind of set you up for what you're doing now. So, and you
Sure.
probably wouldn't be doing the stuff you're doing now if you hadn't had those tries and misses to begin with.
We wouldn't. We absolutely would not.
So, what do if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, do you know Dave at Quantify? What the hell do those guys do? What do you do today?"
Yeah. So in its simplest terms, we do monthly accounting work for like small to medium sized businesses. So that can fall into a couple different buckets. So the first one, which most people know, is like bookkeeping. So we do bookkeeping for clients, some pretty small clients, and we're just getting their stuff in and getting them P&L on a balance sheet every single month. On the high end of it, we're doing more controller, I would call it light CFO work, where we're doing like a true monthly financial close, like a full process, accrual-based accounting, almost to gap-based accounting, um, and then some more advanced reporting. A lot of times in those roles, there's multiple people in the organization that we're overseeing, that are doing some of the day-to-day work, and then really anything in between there is where we're spending our time.
It feels like a very crowded space, right? Like there's a lot of accountants, there's maybe a lot of consult. Like how are you guys standing out? I mean, you've built somewhat of a brand, obviously, but like
Yeah,
what is your kind of
yeah.
target customer and your niche that you figured out?
So the accounting space is certainly crowded. I think what we're doing specifically is not quite as crowded. So there are a lot of people that do tax. There's a lot of people that do audit. There's a lot of like fractional CFOs. There's a lot of bookkeepers. That's probably where the most crowded that we're doing. That controller level is not super crowded. There's not a
Okay.
lot of people that are doing that, and so that's definitely separating us. Um, and we're accountants by trade, but I don't think we really act like normal accountants. I think we act like entrepreneurs, like and have conversations like this. Like a lot of accountants don't do stuff like this, and we're very big on communication. Accountants seem to lack in that space, and just the culture that we're building is a lot different than the public accounting culture. Very forward thinking. Like big differences. We don't track hours. We don't bill hourly. We don't work any overtime. None of our employees work any overtime throughout the entire year. We
Hmm.
all work 40 hours a week or less. And so those are big differences, like big cultural differences, that separate us from a lot of other firms. And then a lot of those internal things then roll into the work that we do as well.
Right. Um, well, kind of related. How did you build? I mean, that's you're certainly your internal culture, which affects the quality of work you guys do is high. I'm sure because of
Mm-hmm.
that. But like, how did you build your brand? How did you kind of etch that name out amongst the semi-crowded space?
Yeah, so being in public accounting, it was an experience that I needed to have because it taught me a lot in the accounting space. But it also taught me a lot of culture things that I needed our business to do differently. Um, and so I think that it was the biggest driver for what we were doing. I saw what my life looked like and where what it was going to look like if I stayed in my entire career in accounting, and I did not want that. And so when I built, this company, the goal was to build it around what I wanted my life to look like first. I tell our employees and my partner all the time, like we do really important work for businesses. A lot of them probably wouldn't survive if they didn't have what we were doing. But there's way more important things than the work that we're doing here. And I'm going to pursue those things myself. And I would encourage all of our employees to do the same thing. And that culture is what we're building and what I feel like separates us, especially in the accounting industry.
And you carry that. I mean, is that in your marketing material? Like, is that in your
It
like
is,
how
yeah.
are you pushing that as your brand publicly?
It is. Yeah, it is. We talk about how we don't prioritize clients. We talk about how our employees have capacity to think through what is going on. We talk about our level of communication. We have a policy that we have to get back to our clients within 24 hours. Usually it's within hours. And all of those things are possible because of the culture that we're building. If our employees were having to work 60, 70 hours a week at full capacity, they can't respond to a client in a couple hours. They
Right.
won't have time to do it. They won't, have time to think through what is going on with the client and how we can provide a recommendation to help their business. And so I think it all goes hand in hand. So we talk about those things that they're going to get, and then I also talk about how we're achieving those things internally, because I think it's important for them to understand, like not just us saying, "Oh yeah, we don't prioritize clients," or "We're going to communicate." It's like, no, how are we doing that? Because if they don't
Hmm.
understand how, then it could just be me saying things.
Right. Um, I mean, typically, again, the fact that you kind of started this and stuck with it and ran it for so long, this question is uh, a little less impactful. But what were some of the things that maybe held you off from starting your business earlier than you did? I mean, you were 24 for Christ's sake. So like, I mean, that's not, it's not like you waited forever, but
Sure.
what are some of the things that, you think maybe held you back from kind of jumping in sooner? And I mean, it sounds like some of those things were probably necessary, but what were some of those things?
So I mean, like the technical thing for me was getting my CPA license. Like I needed to get that because once I left, I needed certain hours in public accounting to get that. So like I couldn't get that without. And I felt like if I was going to go out on my own, like I needed to have that license and those letters to build a little bit of credibility because it's going to be hard enough as a 25-year-old. I felt like having a CPA would help that. So that was one of the things. And then it's all the other things like the financial stability, people around you, especially of like the generation, a little bit older generation, like who, uh, not in a bad way, but they, were very much just work your 9 to 5 for 45 years and then retire, right? And like leaving a job to start your own thing was like foreign to a lot of them, like my parents, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt very, very risky to them. And so some of that external, like, makes you question yourself a little bit. Like, those are my parents, people I love and care about, and they're telling me, like, hey, you really need to think about should you be doing this. Like, you're not going to have financial stability, like, all of these other things. But, it was going to happen. There wasn't much that was going to stop me from doing this.
That's a really, really interesting point. And I do hear that a lot. I hear that generational gap, and I think, you're probably a little bit younger than I am, but I think we're close. And I think I hear the same thing a lot is that, our parents' generation, it was the work until you retire. And there was like, you got your pension and you got your whatever, and you're just like, then you go live on $800 a month or whatever the hell it is for the rest of your life and hope that you have enough till you die. And it's like, but I don't think, my son is, I've got 5 kids, and one of my oldest son's 18, and, I tell him the opposite. I'm like, you should be starting a business. Like, you should start 3 businesses. Like, go try whatever. Like, figure it out and, fail a bunch of times. And that's an interesting point about it being generational. And I always wonder if that's what our parents told them. Like, they just say, like, tell them just, the same kind of thing. Just go to work,
Right.
do your thing, put your head down, and then, come home at the end of the day and clock out at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, it's really interesting to kind of look at all of that because that's what I would be. I have 2 young kids, very young, like under 4.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're not having any of those conversations yet, but like, that's what I'm going to be encouraging them to do. Like, what do you love to do? Go and do that.
Yeah.
Go figure out how to turn that into something because you can. In today's day and age, you can turn anything into a job or a business. So go and do that. Like, back like even when I was going through school, like you had to go to college. That's just what you did. Like you went to college. If you were like, doing pretty well in school, like you're going to college. I don't know if I'm going to be encouraging my kids that much to go to college. Don't know if it's necessary. And
as long as you have a skill, as long as you have a skill or a trade or something you enjoy, like.
And again, there's certain things like if you want to become a doctor, like, yeah, you're gonna have to go to college. I get that. Like, I'm not saying it's, whatever, but like, I think just the things are just changing in it, just to see how drastically it changed just from one generation to the next, like from my parents to me, and now what I'm gonna be sharing with my kids. It's really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, and I think I call myself a consulting evangelist, man. I'm like, if you have any experience in anything, just go consult. Just go, like, people will pay you for that experience. Like, they don't have it, they'll pay you for it. And like, it's a great way to start a business, is to go consult and do that stuff. So it is interesting. I wonder how many more business, like what the numbers are with the amount of businesses started, between this generation and the last. It has to be, just a crazy number.
Yeah.
So if you had to start over, if you had to, if you knew everything, got everything under the the hat that you had over these last 11 years, and you got to start over again, what would be step 1 for you?
That's a good question. Never thought about that. Um, I think it would be clearly defining, first of all, the services that we're offering and who we're offering to in much more detail than we did. Um, when we started, it was like anybody and anybody that will give us $1, we're going to take,
Yep.
right? And that can get you going, but that can also hamper growth too. So I think I would just clearly define like this is the service, this is the value, and this is who can use it. Um, Figure out the best way to then get in front of those people and just hammer that home until I can start to build something. And I think if I was so specific, I think it could have taken off a lot quicker.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Um, and um, did you have to learn how to be a salesman?
Yes, yes, yeah. That I still don't know if I am, to be honest. But yeah, that was probably the hardest thing for me. Um, I am an accountant by trade. My whole life I've been like a very quiet person, not a very like aggressive person. And you can not saying you need all of those things to be in sales, but you have to learn some of those. Like you just have to. You have to be ready to talk, and you have to be ready to stand on certain things and have some tougher conversations. And that's taken a long time to get to a place where like I do feel like I'm pretty decent at sales at this point. But it's taken a lot of no's, and then okay, why did I get a no? Okay, now I gotta try to fix that. And then the next one, oh, it's different. I gotta fix that. What do what are other people who have had way more success than I will ever have saying about this thing? Okay, let me try to implement that, but do it in my own way that fits me. And it's just a constant just failing, learning, failing, learning. And eventually, if you do that enough, like you'll just start to fail like a little bit less and then a little bit less, and you just start to have a little bit of success because you know but that only works if you're learning from your failures. If you're just taking your failures and saying, oh man, I did everything that I could have done, I didn't do anything wrong, I'll just do the same thing again, you're not gonna start to turn some of those failures into wins.
Great advice. You mentioned reading. Um, I'm a huge Audible nerd just because I can do it while I'm doing other stuff, and obviously having 5 kids, I'm always doing other stuff. So,
Yeah.
what are some on the top of your list? I mean, especially around that kind of sales, marketing, business
Yeah.
kind of development,
Hmm.
track.
um There's a couple. So there's one that is very industry specific for us. There's a guy that built a tool called Go Proposal. It's in our industry. He's in the UK. He wrote a book called Selling to Serve, and an awesome book. Like just spoke right into our industry and what we were doing. That was a great book. Two of the other ones that I paid pretty close attention to, big names. Grant Cardone was a big one. Um, Super aggressive, a little too much for me, but you can't argue with his results. Like guy knows his stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot there. Gary Vaynerchuk is another one.
Yep.
I like when I got into him, I was like really into him for a while, and he definitely shaped a lot of the ways that I do things. I still follow his stuff. Those are probably two of the bigger ones. And then that other book. I mean, there's definitely others and things that I follow, but those are the two that kind of stick out the most of just like who are the people that are really successful at sales and building something. I mean, those two guys have to be way up on everybody's list.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love both of those guys.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, as a fellow introvert, I resonate. A lot of the stuff you said resonates with me. Just having to kind of figure out how to sell and how to be a little more. But how would you kind of pass that on, that knowledge of gaining confidence in yourself to sell? How do you? Because I mean, even
Yeah.
recently, it took me years to figure out like I used to tell people to say, "Oh, you're the salesman for your company." I'm like, "No, I'm not a salesman. Like, I'm just like the guy. Just like I'm the CEO guy. I get on the calls and I do the stuff." And then I was like, "Holy
Yeah,
shit, I am the salesman. I
you
have to
are.
do that." So like, how did you or how would you tell people to at least start to tap into that confidence level to be able to do that?
Yeah. I mean, really, the only way that I know how is to just keep trying. Like, I know that sounds, it doesn't sound like the best advice, but like, you got to go. There's nothing that can replace experience. Nothing. Um, there's certain like things that you could do. Obviously, you can read on other people, listen to other people. You can like role play certain things in certain situations, like really understand the objections of your clients. Like those are all very technical things, and those are important things. Like you should be doing all of those practices. But the only way, in my opinion, to really grow is to experience it, hear a bunch of no's, figure out what went wrong and why, get feedback from those people. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone says no, hey, that's you know what, that's totally cool. I'm not gonna bother you, but can you tell me why this didn't work out? Some people will, some people won't, but like, man, I've gotten some golden stuff from people that have told me why over the years, and then I apply that to the next one, and then all of a sudden that turns into a yes.
That's a great.
And
That's a great one. That is
and
good.
and so like, but it's just that experience. You got to do it, and like the first no's are gonna crush you probably. They are going to. Like they're gonna crush you and you're not gonna want to talk to someone else. And then the next group will be a little bit less. And then eventually it's like someone says no, like, all right, like cool, I got another one coming the next day, like I'm good to go. And you'll still have some that hurt you along the way. I had one literally had one 2 days ago. Probably my worst sales loss in 11 years, 2 days ago. That was a tough one to swallow. But I know there's more. I know there's more. I got to just, pick myself back up and keep going. But the more you do it, the more you know, like, hey, like, this is working. Like, I'm having some success. I know I'm going to get no's, but I know that there's another one around the corner. Got to just keep pushing.
I like that. The one thing that I really learned more than anything, I think, running the business was, and talking to other business owners, is that you still fail all the time, even after you've been successful. There's no
Dude,
like
all the
just
time.
just because like you've figured it out, quote unquote. Like it doesn't get any easier to hear no. It doesn't. It sucks just as much to lose out an opportunity. And I think it's good for people to hear like, that successful entrepreneurs and business owners still fail. You know.
Yeah, for the 100% do. You're never gonna succeed 100% of the time, isn't it? It's gonna be probably even a very low percentage. But it really is. I truly believe it's how you respond to those no's. It's okay to be disappointed and to be angry that something didn't work out. But what is your big picture response? Is it gonna go and sit and like, feel sorry for yourself and I can't do this and then I just not gonna talk to anybody else, or is it gonna be like, you know what, like, yeah, that sucks and take a minute, catch my breath, right? On certain ones, I had to do that the other day. Like that one hurt bad. Catch my breath. I know that I'm good at what I do. I'm going to get back on here, and my response to that is what's making me successful. It's how you respond.
Yeah, it's like they say it in every football game when they throw an interception. It's like the short memory. You got to have the short
That's
memory to get
it.
back out there, and you can't just be thinking about the last bad pass. You got to
That's
get
right.
back out there. So,
That's right.
um, so that brings us to the point of the podcast. Who was, and you don't have to say any names, obviously,
Yeah.
but who was
hmm
your first customer?
Yeah. So I thought about this beforehand. So I have two answers. So
I love when there's more than one. That's all
yeah.
right.
So
Go
the
for it.
first one is pretty boring because I don't know who it was, but we were doing taxes. It was probably like my grandpa or something. Like I don't know who it was. Like my grandpa like let us do his tax return for a couple $100. So it was probably like something like that.
Friends and family are usually very
That's
high on
it.
the list.
So it was either them, it was either like my cousin, I don't
Right.
know who it was. It was someone like that. But there was one that stuck out, and because we had never done like true like outsourced accounting work, monthly accounting work before. And there was a client that had an administrative person that I knew their family, just mutual families. We knew each other, and they knew we were doing some accounting, and they said, hey, we're looking for like this and like monthly accounting. This guy's leaving. Can you do this? And I was like, man, we really need to get into this. So I was like, this could be like our start. Like we're gonna have to start somewhere. Someone's gonna have to take a chance on us. And it was a nonprofit, and I remember going in and meeting with the director. And I was just straight up with him. I was like, look, I'll be honest, like we haven't done this before. But this is where we want our business to go. I know that we can do this for you. Like we have the accounting skills to do this. We spent a ton of time like looking through their books and their processes and like detailing out like exactly how we would do it. And he gave us a shot. He even says to this day, he's a client of ours still. This was 9 years ago, I think. I remember sitting in his office for the first time, and he was like, well, I'm going to give you guys a shot. He's like, I just feel like this is going to work out. And that shot propelled us into what we're doing today. And it's crazy to think back on like sitting in that room with him and like being a client for so long. And yeah, that was pretty cool. But that was like the first like true client in what we're doing now that we got. And they're still around. It's
That's
crazy.
awesome, man. And I think it speaks to relationships.
Yeah.
There's so much smoke and mirrors to running a business, and like a lot of it's just relationships. There's no easy button. There's no magic formula. It's like if you're a likable person and you can prove that you can provide somebody a service, you're probably going to get some business. There's no real way around building those relationships. And sometimes, like you said, it comes from a family friend, it comes from somebody you worked with before, it comes with whoever, but like that's a very common first customer is somebody you knew from a previous life that, helps you start out.
Yep. He gave us a shot. Forever grateful for that. And I know we did a good job for him. I mean, they view us as part of their team. Again, I mean, if you're not doing a good job, you don't have a client for 9 years. So we're doing something right. But yeah, just getting that start, and then, not only could we say like, hey, we have a client that does this, but we started to build our own confidence, and then things can kind of go from there.
That's awesome, man. All right, let's switch gears.
Yep.
You got 2 young kids. I say it in every podcast now. Longevity is something one of my friends said to me one time, and he was talking about, how he's working to, not get huge and big every day and, muscular and whatever. He's looking to increase his longevity in life, stay around for as long as he possibly can. What are 3 kind of healthy, things, either, mentally, emotionally, physically? What are you doing to kind of keep yourself tuned up, to stay around for a while?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first goes back to kind of our culture. So like I typically start my day around 9, and I'm out of the office at 4 pretty much every day on the dot. Just guard that time. Now, it's not perfect all the time, but I do guard that time. Do my best to kind of shut things down outside of work to really have that true like family time. I definitely don't work on the weekends. Like that's time for family and for other things. So just trying to guard that time as best as I can. The second thing is, just general health. Like I try to learn as much as I can there, things that like you put in your body, the way you exercise, so that's like a lot of things, diet and all sorts of things, like meditation, mental things, like just I'm always looking for different ways just to be healthy, right? And then the third thing is like my faith is the most important thing in my life. I'm a Christian, I'm a follower of Jesus, and that is what drives my life. And so like staying grounded in that for me, whether I'm working, whether I'm spending time with family, friends, whatever I'm doing, like that is the most important thing in my life. And so having that foundation, hopefully is making me just be a better person, but also, a more healthy person mentally, spiritually.
That's awesome, man. Those are all great answers. Those are all really great answers. All right, mystery question time.
Yep.
And eventually somebody's going to listen to a podcast before I start, so they're gonna know the mystery question because it's the
Okay.
same every time.
I don't know it, so I'm
That's
excited.
great. I love that they don't. I don't want anybody to know it.
Okay.
And I need like a sounder, like a cool like mystery. But
Yep.
all right. So, what would you do? Anything on Earth, physically, altruistically, whatever. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do?
If I knew I couldn't fail, man, that's a great question. Um, man, I feel like I have 100. I have 100
I know.
answers.
People always have 100, and then they have none, and then they're like
Yeah.
stuck in the middle. So like, I give everybody a second.
I have like 100 answers. Oh,
yeah.
what would I do if I couldn't fail? I mean, I mentioned my faith, so it'd definitely be something around that. So I'm big into the outdoors, hunting, that type of stuff. So if I knew I couldn't fail, I probably would leave this job and start like a ministry around that. I don't know what that would look like, but it's not going to fail. So.
You can't fail, so it doesn't matter.
So
what
it'll
it
be
looks
good.
like.
So it'd probably be something around
All
that.
right.
I have no idea.
That's
but,
fair enough. That's fair enough. All right.
Yeah. That's a good question. You get me to stop and I can't answer for a minute. That's a good question.
I love that one. I heard, and I always get really fun answers to it. So I'm glad nobody knows it. The first person who knows and is like prepared for it, I'm going to be really disappointed. So
yeah, because then it'll be like this perfect answer.
Yeah.
Like, because if you can answer right away, like that would be really impressive.
I mean, unless you're like, I would assume, the people who answer like quicker are like bucket list items.
Right.
They're
right.
like, my wife's cousin, when I asked her about it, she wasn't on the show, but I asked her just to see what she said. She's like, climb Mount Everest. I'm like, all right, that's a good one. My other buddy was like, fly an F-16. I'm like, all right, those are cool answers.
Right,
like, those are, but
those
like,
cool.
but there's other like, that kind of answer. I like those, more, because you got to think about them a little bit. So, but let's call it there, man. That was great. I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better. Quantify. If the people are trying to find Quantify, what is the best way? Is it just to go to the website? Is it to reach out on LinkedIn? Like, what's the best way to find you?
Either or, yeah. The quantifygroup.com is our website, or I spend a ton of time on LinkedIn, so I'm happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn.
All right, cool, brother. Well, it was awesome to meet you, and hope you have a great weekend and you get out of there. Look, it's 2:47, so you've got like an hour and 13 minutes until your weekend begins. So it was great meeting you, brother. I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man.